In the quiet dawns of ancient lands, the old warriors would say that the spirit is not shaped by comfort, but by the fires we willingly walk into. For only in heat does steel remember its purpose. To master life is to master the heart, and to master the heart is to master discipline. Turning effort into instinct, turning struggle into flow, making the grind feel as natural as breath itself, as effortless as a swipe on a screen. This is the essence of Hagano Ishi. The will forged from unshakable steel. Today, we stand together as modern warriors, choosing to sharpen our minds the way the samurai once sharpened their blades. Turning every repetition into a ritual, every challenge into a forge that tempers our spirit. If you are ready to transform your discipline, comment "I'm ready," subscribe, and join this growing clan of warriors who refuse to surrender to weakness. Thank you for being part of this brotherhood and sisterhood of resilience, where every day we forge ourselves a little stronger, a little wiser, a little more unbreakable. Consistency is not built in a single moment of inspiration, but in the countless small moments where you choose movement over hesitation. The flow of consistent action is the rhythm of warriors who understand that greatness is not a single strike of the sword, but thousands of silent repetitions done when no one is watching. It is the quiet, steady current that transforms effort into identity, shaping habits until they feel as natural as the beating of your heart. When you step into this flow, you stop viewing progress as a dramatic leap and start appreciating it as a series of deliberate steps. Each action becomes like water dripping on stone, soft at first, almost unnoticed, but powerful enough to carve mountains over time. The samurai believed that true mastery came from repeating the basics until they became a part of one's spirit. And in this same way, consistent action turns discipline into instinct. You no longer ask whether you feel motivated. You simply act because action has become who you are. This flow carries you forward without force, like a river guided by its own nature, steady, determined, and impossible to stop. To enter the flow of consistent action, you must treat every task, no matter how small, as a chance to strengthen your character. The world often tells you to wait for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, or the perfect burst of energy, but the warriors of old knew that hesitation is the enemy of momentum. Small actions taken immediately beat perfect actions delayed forever. And train 3 times when you learn to start without overthinking. When you train your mind to value movement over perfection. Each time you choose to take action in the face of resistance, you forge mental armor, a type of inner steel that becomes thicker with every repetition. The flow grows stronger when you remove drama from discipline, when brushing up your skills, practicing your craft, or pursuing your goals feels less like a monumental challenge and more like a daily ritual. The samurai performed the same motions thousands of times, not to impress others, but to refine their spirit. In the same way, your repeated actions, no matter how simple, build a momentum that becomes almost impossible to break. You realize your strength is not in bursts, but in the quiet endurance that keeps you moving forward. Consistency cannot rely on emotion, because emotions are unpredictable, like storms that appear without warning. The flow of consistent action is built on commitment, not mood, on purpose, not convenience. When you commit to the path, you create a rhythm that your mind begins to trust, a cycle of effort and reward that strengthens your discipline over time. This flow feels almost magical once it becomes part of you. You start experiencing effort as something lighter, more fluid, almost enjoyable, like slipping into a familiar stance before a strike. The work becomes its own reward because you recognize that each action, no matter how simple, adds another layer to your strength. The more you act, the more you want to act. Momentum becomes your ally, carrying you past distractions and excuses. What once felt difficult becomes effortless, not because the task changed, but because you changed. In this state, consistency becomes your quiet superpower, the invisible force that moves you steadily toward every goal you set, shaping you into someone defined not by intention, but by action. The discipline of micro-habits is the art of mastering life through the smallest possible actions, repeated with unwavering intention. It is the samurai principle of refining one stroke until it becomes flawless, understanding that even the grandest victories are built upon microscopic steps. Micro-habits remove the weight of overwhelm and replace it with the power of simplicity, doing what is manageable, repeatable, and sustainable every single day. A single minute of focus, one page read, one conscious breath, one deliberate choice repeated consistently becomes the foundation for profound transformation. The mind resists big changes, but it accepts small ones easily, allowing these tiny actions to bypass doubt and resistance. When you practice micro-habits, you teach your brain that progress is always within reach, never too heavy to carry. These small commitments generate a chain reaction of confidence and clarity. Every completed action sends the message, I keep my promises to myself, and this message becomes the core of discipline. Just like a blade gains its lethal sharpness from countless subtle refinements, you shape your destiny through hundreds of small, invisible victories that accumulate into undeniable strength. Micro-habits are powerful because they are too small to fail, but too consistent to ignore. Most people wait for the perfect day, the perfect energy, or the perfect mindset to begin. But a warrior of discipline realizes that perfection is a trap and consistency is freedom. A micro-habit requires no special motivation. It only requires the willingness to begin. You read one sentence, drink one glass of water, practice 1 minute of stillness, complete one tiny task, and each of these becomes a seed planted in the soil of your future. Over time, these seeds sprout into routines, and routines transform into identity. When you stack micro-habits, you create a chain of small wins that shift your psychology from doubt to certainty. This psychological shift is where discipline is born, not from grand declarations, but from quiet execution. The samurai understood this deeply. They repeated their movements endlessly, not because they needed to, but because repetition forged mastery. Micro-habits work the same way. They create patterns so natural, so automatic, that discipline no longer feels like force, it feels like flow. You become someone who acts without hesitation, because small effort becomes your instinct. The discipline of micro-habits is also a form of self-respect. It teaches you that your future is shaped not by rare bursts of greatness, but by the daily decisions nobody sees. When you commit to tiny actions, you eliminate the excuses that often sabotage bigger goals. You no longer say, I don't have time, because micro-habits require almost none. You no longer say, it's too difficult, because micro-habits are intentionally easy. You no longer wait for motivation, because micro-habits generate motivation through momentum, and as momentum grows, your habits evolve naturally. One push-up becomes 5 minutes of reading becomes 20, one small act of discipline becomes a chain reaction that rewires your life. Micro-habits create an identity shift so subtle that you barely notice it happening, until one day you realize you've become someone stronger, more disciplined, more capable than you ever imagined. Like the samurai who sharpened their blade daily to ensure readiness for any battle, you sharpen your mind, your discipline, and your spirit through these tiny commitments. Each micro-habit may seem insignificant alone, but together they forge a version of you that is unshakable, unstoppable, and destined for mastery. The mindset of effortless focus is not about forcing the mind into stillness, but guiding it with the same calm precision a samurai uses when drawing their blade. True focus is born when effort transforms into presence, when the mind stops wrestling with itself and instead aligns with a single intention. In a world overflowing with noise, distraction becomes the default. But a warrior's mind learns to slip beneath the chaos and find clarity within. Effortless focus begins with understanding that the mind becomes sharp when it is centered, not pressured, when it is aligned with purpose, not chained by fear or urgency. This mindset allows you to treat each task as a sacred moment, one point of awareness, one breath, one motion. When you engage fully, even for a short period, the quality of your actions multiplies. The samurai trained to be fully present in every strike, knowing that distraction meant defeat. In the same way, you reclaim your power when you stop scattering your attention and instead channel it like a beam of light. Effortless focus is not a gift. It is a discipline of returning to what matters, again and again, until it becomes your natural state. To cultivate this mindset, you must first remove the belief that focus requires intensity or struggle. Effortless focus grows from simplicity, doing one thing at a time, removing unnecessary noise, and treating your attention as a sacred resource. The modern world rewards multitasking, but multitasking fractures the mind, weakens awareness, and dulls the spirit. Warriors knew that divided attention led to vulnerability, and today it leads to mental exhaustion and unfinished goals. Practicing this mindset begins with small acts, putting your phone away, setting short periods of deep concentration, breathing before beginning a task. These tiny rituals anchor your awareness and signal to your brain that it's time to enter a sharper, calmer state. Once the mind experiences the ease and strength of full presence, it begins to crave that clarity. This is the moment when focus stops being a chore and becomes a refuge. You realize that life itself becomes more fluid when you stop forcing concentration and instead let it rise naturally through intention and rhythm. With repetition, this clarity becomes instinctive, allowing you to enter your flow with the same smoothness as a warrior stepping into familiar combat stance. The mindset of effortless focus transforms your mental landscape. Tasks that once felt overwhelming shrink into manageable pieces, and distractions that once commanded your attention lose their grip. Your mind begins to filter the world not through noise but through purpose. Effortless focus does not mean you never get distracted. It means you return to the moment with the ease of a drifting leaf returning to the river's center. The more you train this return, the faster your mind reorganizes itself whenever it wanders. Over time, you develop a sharpened awareness, able to block out chaos and operate with a clarity that feels almost meditative. This is the power the ancient warriors cultivated through Zanshin, the ever-present awareness that anchors the spirit. When you embody this mindset, you no longer chase productivity. Instead, you enter a state where your energy flows smoothly, your thoughts align, and your actions carry precision. You become someone who moves through challenges with grace, someone whose focus is not forced but forged, not intense but intentional, not chaotic but deeply calm. This is the discipline of mastering your inner world until your mind itself becomes your strongest weapon. The ritual of daily repetition is the heartbeat of mastery, the ancient rhythm that every warrior, craftsman, and thinker has followed since the beginning of time. It is the acknowledgement that greatness is not forged in sudden bursts of inspiration, but in the quiet, predictable cadence of actions done again and again. Repetition shapes the mind, the way flowing water shapes stone. Slowly, silently, but with unstoppable force. When you commit to repeating the same discipline each day, you create a pattern that strengthens both your spirit and your identity. The samurai understood this deeply. They refined the same strike thousands of times not because they lacked skill, but because repetition polished the soul. Through this ritual you learn that transformation is not dramatic, it is incremental, subtle, and sacred. Each repeated action becomes a thread in the fabric of who you are becoming, weaving strength, consistency, and resilience into your character. Daily repetition strips away uncertainty and replaces it with rhythm. And in that rhythm you discover a hidden power, the ability to act without resistance, without hesitation, without fear. When you honor repetition as a ritual rather than a chore, your relationship with discipline changes entirely. You stop treating your goals as distant dreams and begin experiencing them as lived realities unfolding through consistent effort. The ritual becomes a kind of meditation, predictable, grounding, and deeply empowering. Every day you return to the same actions, you reinforce your commitment to growth, telling your mind and body, "This is who I am now." Even when progress feels slow, repetition ensures that you're always moving forward, even if by a single step. Many people quit because they confuse slowness with failure, but the warrior sees slowness as refinement. Through repetition, your movements become smoother, your thoughts become clearer, and your responses become swifter. The practice of doing something daily, no matter how small, reminds you that mastery is not built in leaps but in layers. Repetition begins. Each day adds another layer, another stroke of the blade, another line written in the story of your becoming. Ritual repetition turns discipline from something heavy into something familiar, almost comforting. You don't have to think your way into action. You simply act, because it has become part of your nature. The true strength of daily repetition reveals itself over time, when you begin to change not just your habits, but your identity. What was once difficult becomes natural, and what was once natural becomes effortless. You start to realize that repetition is not about the task, it is about who you become through the task. Your mind grows steadier, your discipline grows thicker, and your spirit grows sharper. The warrior learns that repetition is a forge. Each day you enter it, you emerge slightly stronger, slightly clearer, slightly more aligned with your purpose. And even on days when motivation fades or energy drops, the ritual carries you. You rely not on emotion but on rhythm, not on inspiration but on devotion. The more you practice, the more automatic your discipline becomes, until one day you look back and realize that the simple act of repeating has transformed your entire world. Through the ritual of daily repetition, you carve a path so deep and so clear that nothing can pull you away from it. Not doubt, not distraction, not fear. You become a warrior sculpted by consistency, defined by devotion, and elevated by the quiet power of returning each day to the same sacred work. The joy of progressive mastery is the quiet celebration of becoming, the deep satisfaction that arises when you realize that every step forward, no matter how small, carries meaning. It is the understanding that mastery is not a final destination, but a lifelong ascent, where each moment of growth adds a new layer of strength to your spirit. True mastery is not measured by how quickly you advance, but by how deeply you commit to the journey. The samurai found joy not only in their victories, but in their practice. The sharpening of the blade, the precision of the stance, the refinement of a single motion done thousands of times. That joy came from witnessing their own evolution. Progressive mastery teaches you that improvement is its own reward, that each day you become even 1 degree better. You are honoring your potential. This slow rise, steady and humble, builds a kind of happiness that cannot be shaken by failure or slowed by doubt. It is the joy of watching yourself grow into someone more focused, more capable, more resilient than you were before. As you embrace progressive mastery, you begin to see challenges not as obstacles, but as invitations to refine your abilities. Every mistake becomes a lesson carved into your experience. Every attempt becomes another line on your path toward excellence. You learn to appreciate the small wins that most people overlook. The smoother movement, the clearer thought, the faster decision, the deeper understanding. These tiny improvements may seem insignificant in the moment, but they accumulate like drops of water filling a vast reservoir of competence. One day others may call your skill talent, but you will know it was built quietly through persistence. The joy of progressive mastery comes from recognizing that mastery is earned, not given, forged, not found. The samurai understood that mastery meant devotion, not perfection. They embraced each stage of growth with humility, knowing that the path itself was a teacher. When you focus on progress rather than perfection, your journey becomes lighter, your spirit becomes freer, and your mind becomes more open to growth. You no longer rush the process, you savor it. Eventually, progressive mastery transforms the way you see yourself. Instead of chasing quick success, you fall in love with long-term evolution. You realize that the joy isn't just in reaching higher levels, but in proving to yourself that you can rise at all. Each milestone brings not just pride, but a deeper hunger to grow because you've tasted the fulfillment that comes from earning your strength. This transformation becomes self-perpetuating. The better you become, the more you want to improve. The more you improve, the more joy you feel. Mastery no longer feels like a grind. It feels like a privilege, a journey that reveals your potential one step at a time. You understand that every day is an opportunity to refine your craft, sharpen your discipline, and deepen your purpose. This joy is different from the fleeting thrill of instant results. It is grounded, lasting, and powerful. It keeps you committed even when the world grows silent. It carries you through challenges with dignity, knowing that every trial adds something to your strength. Through progressive mastery, you become a warrior who values growth over glory, process over praise, and evolution over ease. And so, warriors, as we stand at the edge of this journey, remember that the path you walk is not defined by how fast you move, but by the strength you forge with every deliberate step. Hard work does not have to feel heavy, overwhelming, or burdensome. Not when you shape it through flow, micro-habits, effortless focus, daily rituals, and the joy of constant growth. When you combine these pillars, the grind becomes a dance, the effort becomes energy, and discipline becomes something you look forward to rather than fear. You carry within you the same spirit the ancient samurai cultivated, unbreakable, disciplined, and rooted in purpose. This community is a brotherhood and sisterhood of rising warriors, and I thank every one of you for walking this path with honor. If this message ignited something within you, comment "I carry the spirit," subscribe, and keep sharpening your mind alongside thousands of others committed to transformation. The journey does not end here. It begins with what you do after these words fade. Rise each day, take a step, keep forging, and let your hard work feel lighter, smoother, and more natural with every breath. Your evolution has already begun. Now carry it forward with pride.